Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The long range meta here in Warzone has shifted around a little bit at long last post season 1 reloaded and a couple of the other meta updates that we got recently. And so today I wanted to give you guys the breakdowns for the best long range options in the game, the best weapons and builds for them. And we're starting off first with a strong contender, the BAS-B. Now this has been a go-to really just versatile weapon in Warzone since the integration dropped. It's, usable for sniper support if you build it more close range, but for long range as well with this build, the thing still fries and is one of the fastest TTKs in the entire game. And quite frankly, it's even more lethal now because of the introduction of the JAK BFB muzzle. This is a decently high recoil weapon by comparison as is, but you throw this thing on there and it becomes a laser beam just straight up. Now, yes, you do show up as the advanced UAV ping on the minimap, but enemies don't know your elevation there, and quite frankly, if they're looking at you and trying to push you while you're frying with this thing, they're not going to stand a chance. So this is a huge, upgrade to the setup in general. I've got the Venom long barrel on here. It's going to help out with control, velocity, and range. So obviously just increasing its efficiency where we're aiming to use it. The Bruen heavy support underbarrel, great for general gun kick and horizontal control, only hurts your ADS a little bit there. And that vertical con doesn't really matter when we got the BFB on there. 45 round extended mag, obviously sort of a no-brainer there. Then I got the 2.5 times eagle eye as well, sort of my go-to optic of choice for mid to long range. But if there's a different optic that you prefer more, always go for that because comfortability over everything in this case. Now, by far one of my favorite guns in the game still is going to be the Pulemyot. This was slightly nerfed. The conversion kit build was slightly nerfed with season 1 reloaded, but even then it's still one of the best long range options in the game. It's also extremely aggressive for an LMG with 100 rounds, and it's ridiculously easy to use. It's super low recoil, especially with this build on here. So initially we do have the JAK Annihilator bullpup kit on there to make it more aggressive and agile there, and because of that we unlock attachments like the 15 recoil reduction pad stock, which as you might tell by the name there, helps out with recoil reduction across the board. In general, gun kick being benefited there. Again, we got the 2.5 times eagle eye optics, so no real changes with that one. The Annihilator barrel is going to be on here as well. This is unlocked through the conversion kit, helps out with general velocity and range. Then of course we got the Spirit Fire suppressor on there as well, which is that nice little 3-in-1 combo of range, velocity, and control. By far the best suppressor for mid to long range gunfights there. But this thing is extremely versatile for an LMG. It's surprisingly versatile, honestly, and hits like a truck over range. Now I'm glad to see some rifle versatility in the long range just because of some of those nerfs that we saw to other LMGs. Things like the SVA can now shine a little bit more, and not to mention this thing is ridiculously easy to use, so that's a nice edge that it now has. Its recoil is like next to none. If you use it in hyper burst mode, it technically has like no visual distortion or bounce there, so it's super easy. Anyone can pick this thing up and do well with it, and quite frankly you can use this setup in semi-auto or full auto and it's going to do really well. So 2.5 times optic yet again, the 60 round mag, your basic extended mag, Bruen heavy underbarrel yet again, Spirit Fire suppressor yet again. Then I go for the precision barrel. This is going to be that 3-in-1 combo of range, velocity, and control. So overall a very straightforward and very basic setup, but hey, it gets the job done, and this thing is one of our best options in the game right now. Now I somehow almost forgot to include the KATT in this list, but obviously when it comes to long range meta options, we got to include the best one-shot sniper in the game. Now this setup is a tad bit different here depending on what you value the most. Initially I got the Nightfall suppressor, still helping out with some better velocity even after the slight nerf to that. Same deal with the Zang 34 barrel. Now for what it's worth, you can still use Spire Point rounds. It's going to give you better velocity. High grain will also give you better velocity, but if you want the absolute best velocity out of the ammunition stat, you want to go for the just general high velocity rounds there. It'll increase that a tad bit. It's not a huge difference, but it is a little bit extra there. I also go for the tactical pad stock for the better ADS speed, and then the quick bull just so I can get those shots off back to back to back a little bit faster there. As mentioned, this is the one true one-shot sniper. Sure, you could use like the MCPR or the Victus or the Imperium, but you have to use explosive ammo on those, and that kills the velocity, and you basically don't really have a viable option there for long range. So KATT is still clear the #1 sniping choice here, even though it was slightly nerfed. Next up we got the RAM, and it's kind of curious that a build like this, which is iron sight based, can be considered a long range meta, but this gun's just so easy to use and the sights are so clean and its TTK is so good that at 50, 60, 70, 80 meters, you can just fry with this thing without issue, right? It's one of my favorite setups in the entire game. Initially, Spirit Fire Suppressor, Bruen heavy support per usual. I've got the Core Mark 40 heavy barrel, which is range, velocity, and control as always. The 60 round extended mag. Then I also go for the HVS 3.4 pad stock. This helps out with general control as well. And honestly, for a rifle, this thing is surprisingly aggressive as is. Even with this build on here, seems like it's got pretty good movement. It's still aggressive, extremely versatile, and incredibly easy to use. By the way, as we are breaking down all the metas here today, if you enjoy the video or if you find it helpful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video itself. It really does help grow the channel. And if you're new here or you simply have not subscribed yet, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, because every single day I got you covered with absolutely everything going on in COD. Next up, we got the Bruen. Again, this was slightly nerfed with Season 1 Reloaded, but it was still so good pre-update that post-update, it's now just one of the better, more competitive options in the game, and still one of the top choices for mid to long range. Reminds me just like of the MW 2019 Bruen and the Warzone 1 Bruen, which is one of my all-time favorite metas. It feels so similar to that in so many ways. The 2.5 times optic, just like the VOK 3 times optic back in the day. Obviously, you got the 60 round mag on here for that better mobility, speeds it up a lot while keeping it aggressive. Bruen heavy support, underbarrel, Spirit Fire Suppressor, and then in this case, the Horizon barrel only does velocity and control. You don't really need to have the extra range on here like what you're usually missing in that 3-in-1 combo in this case, just because the range on this gun is so good as is that you're not really missing out on all that much. So this is a surprisingly unique weapon in that sense, that the range is just so dominant, and obviously being low recoil and heavy hitting means it's a top meta option. Now, it's a little bit slept on, but I would say the Holger 5.56 falls into the long range meta. It is arguably the easiest weapon to use on the list here today. This thing's got like no recoil whatsoever. It does have a really competitive TTK over range too. When you factor that in with super low recoil, you get a nice little laser beam style gun. One drawback here is going to be that ammo capacity. A 40 round max extended mag is not great, but luckily it's so easy to land shots that that's not going to be a deal breaker by any means. We got the 2.5 times optic on here yet again. In this case, I'm messing around a little bit. I got the angled underbarrel instead of Bruen heavy. They're essentially doing the same thing. This one just does less for your gun kick and doesn't have an ADS con. It's still focusing on horizontal control though, which makes the pattern super predictable. We got the Spirit Fire Suppressor, then also the Cryo 6 match barrel, which you guessed it is that 3-in-1 combo. Better range, better velocity, better control, better pizza Papa John's, just keeping it consistent over the mid to long range. Like I said, I feel like this is underrated. A lot of people lean towards the SVA or the Pulemyot, but this is up there. It's definitely a really good choice. And then lastly, here we have what I would call the Interceptor 2.0, the MCW 6.8 marksman rifle. It's semi-auto, but this thing overall is a beast when it comes down to it. You can spam it. It's got a much better magazine capacity. You can go all the way up to 60 on this thing. So for sniper ammo, you're not going to have to worry about running out of that in the middle of a fight like you would with an Interceptor or even a KVD Enforcer in some cases. I also got the Assault stock on here, helps out with general control, so when you're spamming it's even easier to use. 2.5 times optic. The Bruen heavy support obviously is going to help out with our general horizontal control and whatnot, the gun kick, but also stability in this case is so clutch, making this gun easier to use as you're spamming it with the recenter and the sway, so that's really nice to have on there. Then I also got the Spirit Fire Suppressor yet again for that 3-in-1 combo there. Really fun marksman rifle that definitely is not as broken as the Interceptor once was, but certainly takes over that category now post Interceptor nerf in my opinion. And that being said, that's how the long range meta plays out here after all the recent updates to the meta, and that's gonna wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, you want to guarantee that every single day you got all the details you need to know about MW3 and Warzone, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.